Am I the only one that didn't know TikTok could be this terrifying? Let's dive in. Tonight we've gathered the most spine-chilling TikToks that'll make your skin crawl. From ghostly apparitions to eerie, unexplained sounds, every clip is designed to haunt your dreams. So, dim the lights, grab a blanket, and get ready to face your deepest fears. This is Cloak and Dagger's Halloween special. Let's get spooky.
One of the scariest true stories I've ever heard. Back on October 17, 1941, police found the lifeless body of 73-year-old Philip Peters inside his Denver, Colorado home. He'd been bludgeoned with an iron rod. Strangely, all the doors and windows in the house were locked and there were no signs of forced entry. While this was going on, Peters' wife had been in the hospital recuperating from a broken hip. She returned to her now empty house along with a housekeeper to help care for her. Over time, both women became increasingly terrified as they began to hear strange noises throughout the house in the middle of the night. Eventually, the housekeeper quit because she was convinced the house was haunted. Mrs. Peters soon abandoned the house as well. She moved in with her son in western Colorado. This left the house empty, or so they thought. Over time, neighbors began complaining to police that strange things continued to occur inside the house. Movement could be seen from inside, and sometimes lights would click on in the middle of the night. Police staked the home out. Then on July 30th, 1942, one of them noticed some movement inside the house. They burst in and ran upstairs to the attic just in time to see a pair of skinny legs sliding inside a tiny trapdoor. Police reached in and dragged out a skeletally thin homeless man named Theodore Edward Conies. The 59-year-old Canadian immigrant had broken into the house weeks earlier and found a tiny trapdoor in the attic that would have been too narrow for any normal-sized man, but not for someone as scrawny as he was. Conies had been living inside the house completely unbeknownst to Mr. and Mrs. Peters. That is until one night when Mr. Peters caught him downstairs stealing food from the fridge. After that, an altercation ensued, and Conies beat the life out of the old man. It was because of Conies' narrow stature that the press dubbed him the Denver Spider-Man. So the next time you hear a strange noise inside your house, you might want to check to make sure you really are truly alone.
This paranormal story will make the hairs on your neck stand straight up. A Reddit user that we'll call Mary moved into a rent house with her boyfriend and another roommate. And she said from the time they moved in, it just never really felt like home. It didn't have that cozy, safe vibe. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Oftentimes, she just would have this creeped out feeling that she was being watched and followed around the house. Well, her boyfriend and roommate worked nights, and so she was often home alone at nighttime. And on this one particular evening, she was in fact home alone, and she was going through her nighttime routine. She was watching a little TV before bed, and that same sense of dread and being creeped out came over her. And as she was sitting there watching TV, she couldn't make herself look down the bedroom hallway, let alone walk down there. And this persisted for about 2 hours of just feeling particularly on edge about the hallway. But after a while, she was tired and sleepy, and she said, you know what, this is ridiculous. I'm just freaking myself out over nothing. I'm going to bed. So she walks down that hallway. She leaves the lights on in the hallway, but she goes and shuts herself in her bedroom, gets into bed, flips off the lamp, and tries to go to sleep. And as she's laying there in bed in the dark, all of a sudden she starts hearing a sound. And it's the sound of her side table drawer creaking open and clicking to a stop. She immediately flips on the lamp and looks, and nothing's out of place. She flips the lamp back off, and this continues to happen about another 6 times before she finally says, screw it, I'm sleeping with the lights on. So she pulls the covers up over her head, and she's just at this point waiting for her boyfriend to come home. And around 3 a.m., her boyfriend does come home, and she's like, thank God, and she tells him everything that's gone on. And he makes fun of her, and he's like, you are being ridiculous. You got yourself freaked out over nothing. It's time to go to sleep. So he flips off the lights, he gets in bed, and all hell breaks loose. One by one, the doors in the hallway start slamming shut. Boom, 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 boom. The closet doors in every room of the house start rattling violently. And the sounds from inside these closets sound like utter destruction. We're talking things being ripped off of hangers, the poles in the closets being ripped down. It just sounds like total chaos. And Mary and her boyfriend are literally hiding under the covers together, absolutely terrified. Everything finally went quiet, and it took about 5 or 10 minutes for Mary to convince her boyfriend to go check out the house. And they knew it wasn't their roommate because their roommate had actually driven 3 hours to see a friend. So the boyfriend goes and checks out the house, opens the closet doors. Nothing is out of place. Needless to say, Mary's boyfriend became a believer, and they moved out of that house shortly after. Y'all, I'm on my way to 1 million followers. Please hit that follow button, like and comment. That helps the algorithm show my videos to more people. Cheers.
In the Philippines, there's a true and terrifying story about a haunted hospital in Manila called Ozone Disco Club. This club was once a lively place where young people gathered to dance and have fun. But one night in 1996, a terrible fire broke out, trapping and killing 162 people inside. People say that the spirits of those who died still haunt the place. One night, a girl named Maria and her friends decided to visit the abandoned club. As they explored the dark, empty building, they felt a sudden chill in the air. Maria heard faint music playing, like the club was still alive with people dancing. She brushed it off, thinking it was her imagination. But then, she saw shadows moving in the corners of her eyes, and the faint laughter of young voices echoed through the halls. Her friends started to feel uneasy and wanted to leave, but Maria was curious. She ventured deeper into the club, where the fire had been most intense. Suddenly, she felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. She turned around, but no one was there. The laughter grew louder, and she saw ghostly figures dancing around her. Panicked, Maria ran back to her friends, but the ghosts followed. The friends fled the club, vowing never to return. Maria later learned that many people who visited the Ozone Disco Club had experienced similar hauntings. Guys, suggest me scary stories or comment your country so I can make a story.
You need to hear this if you're a parent with a newborn. It'll send chills down your spine. My newborn wouldn't stop crying. I rushed to her room, heart pounding. As I stepped closer to the crib, I heard it. A soothing voice whispered, "Shh, Mommy's coming." But I was already standing right there. My breath hitched. I glanced around, every shadow suddenly menacing. Was it the baby monitor? Or something else? The room felt colder, the silence heavier. I leaned in, my own voice trembling. "Who's there?" The whisper stopped. Only my baby's soft breaths now. I checked the monitor. No glitches, no one else on the line. Just me, my baby, and that unsettling quiet. Parents ever had a moment like this? Tell me in the comments. Stay safe and keep listening.
It was a weekend night, November of 2015. My 7-year-old son Sean was having a sleepover with 4 of his friends. At the time, my wife wasn't home for whatever reason, so I had to keep a somewhat close watch on them without making it too obvious. They were all in Sean's room making a lot of noise, and when things would get either too quiet or too loud, I would sneak over to the bedroom door and just listen to what was going on. You may think that's weird, but this was my wife's instructions, and any married man knows you never want to go against what your wife tells you to do. When it was getting a little loud, I went over to the door and heard that they were all just simply playing with Legos and other toys very loudly. So I went back to the living room to watch TV. Eventually, I heard weird thumping type noises coming from my son's room. I muted the TV and could distinguish them to be taps on one of the windows. I figured, let them have their fun so long as they're not breaking anything. I unmuted the TV. However, I quickly realized things went completely silent from down the hall in my son's room. Now I was nervous that they might have broken something, because it was very uncommon for them to all be completely silent for so long. So I once again crept over to Sean's bedroom door and listened. I could hear quiet giggling and whispering in the room. I finally opened the door out of curiosity and saw the 4 boys sitting on the rug with a mess of toys scattered all over the place. I noticed that the window was completely open. I told Sean to keep it shut, and to also keep the noise down a little bit before shutting the door. I made a stop into the bathroom before planning to go back to the living room. However, when I was in the bathroom, I noticed through the corner of my eye a black shadow passing the window outside. I ran back to my son's room and told the 4 boys not to go outside. Then, that's when it hit me. There were only 4 boys in the room as opposed to 5. Sean's friend Tom was missing. In a panic, I yelled at Sean to tell me where he was, and they all pointed to the open window. Sean said that he left with the pirate to go find the treasure. In that moment, I felt a mixture of feelings in my stomach, but mostly like it was about to explode. I wouldn't be able to fit through that window, so I ran out the front door and caught view of a man holding Tom's hand and walking towards a car. I yelled at him to stop. They both turned around, and then the man let go of Tom, hopped into the tan-colored Toyota Corolla, and floored it down the streets. I ran to grab Tom and brought him back inside. I was no longer comfortable with this sleepover, and called all of the parents, told them what happened, and suggested they all come and pick up their kids, which is exactly what they did. I received a bit of criticism from Tom's parents at first, but they ultimately thanked me, and their son is still good friends with my son. The boys all said that a random man came to Sean's window, knocked on it, lifted it open himself, and talked in a pirate voice, asking one of the kids to come with him to find the treasure. The fact that this happened in the assumed safety of my own house, and that it actually worked, is what disturbs me the most.
Do you know the truth behind Teletubbies? The real story of Teletubbies is taken from a mental hospital in Bulgaria for a group of children. Lala has a distorted face that makes her smile all the time. She always sat in her room alone in the hospital, so her skin turned yellow because she wasn't exposed to the sun. Tinky Winky was 7 years old, and he hit himself on the wall until his head cracked. So they tied him up with a rope so he wouldn't move. Because of the rope and restrictions on his limbs turned blue. Boo was with them in the hospital. And when the fire happened, they forgot all about her. I think you know why she is red. And for Tinky, he was always hungry and sad because he was depressed. When they gave him food, he would just throw it away. Nipsey represented a deaf child who was allegedly tied to a fence outside and suffered frostbite. The characters of the Teletubbies are based off of real children who endured horrific experiences. Why would they base a children's show off of real-world horrific stories from a mental hospital?
In July of 2012, Leah Hiller was training for the U.S. Triathlon National Championships in Island Lake, Minnesota. She planned to go for a mile-long swim, as she had done many times before. But what she encountered in this lake this time would turn out to be what nightmares are made of. The thing about Island Lake is that the water is the color of like dark rum. So if you put your hand into the water, you can't even see past your elbow. And so you have no idea what's beneath. So as Leah's father and 2 children stood along the shore and watched her swim, Leah suddenly felt a pair of tiny little hands grab her foot, followed by a sharp set of teeth biting into her ankle so hard that it penetrated the bone. All this happened so quickly, and whoever this little thing is that has grabbed and bitten her lets go. And so in these next few moments, she is so panicked and confused, trying to think, what is this in this lake that I've been in hundreds of times, literally during my training, that is now attacking me? I've never had anything like this happen to me before. And just as she's thinking that, she sees a small head only a few feet away emerge from this lake. And this head kind of looks around for a second and then sees her and fixes its gaze directly onto her and doesn't look away. And it's at this time Leah realizes she's looking at an otter. And she said, surely this can't be what just bit me. Otters don't attack people, do they? But what Leah didn't know at that time is that later doctors would realize that otter was currently infected with rabies. And so it had essentially turned it into this rogue, bloodthirsty otter that was staring directly into her eyes. Seconds later, this otter torpedoes back into the water and heads straight for her legs again. Then she feels a searing pain, she described it, into her calf muscle. This otter's teeth sliced through her calf muscle while its little hands were grabbing her leg. And at this point, she begins to panic and scream. She said, this thing is ripping me apart. I need help. It's crunching into my ankle bone. It's slicing into my muscle. I need real help, or this thing is going to tear my legs to pieces. On the shore, Leah's father sees this commotion. She's splashing and screaming and waving her arms all frantically and panicked, and he knows something's wrong. She's never done anything like this, and all the times that she swam in this lake, and so he quickly rushes over to a pontoon boat that he owned. But in his own panic of seeing his daughter in this state, this frenzied state, he accidentally floods the motor of the boat and it won't start, and he's not able to get out there this moment to help his daughter. And so Leah does her best to swim to shore, knowing she can't outswim this otter, and puts one hand over her throat, knowing that if she got hit there, she would not make it. And so she continues paddling to shore as fast as she can. The entire time, this otter repeated the same cycle. It would grab hold of her legs, bite into her, let her go, swim away, and emerge on the surface, looking around until it saw her position again, and then dart right back under the water and start it all over. This otter would go on to do this 25 times. Leah Hiller was ripped into 25 times by this rabies-infested otter before her father was finally able to find a neighbor's pontoon boat and fire it up and get out there to save her. When Leah was finally pulled onto the boat, her neoprene wetsuit was ripped to shreds on the entire lower half of her body, and blood was pouring down her legs. Her 2 kids were horrified to see her and instantly started crying, and she was taken to the hospital. Later at the hospital, when doctors realized that this otter likely had rabies, she had to receive a rabies shot in every bite wound, meaning she received 25 shots in her open wounds. But Leah went on to make a full recovery, and she continued training for the triathlon and did not let this stop her.
True and terrifying story about a woman named Hachishaku-sama, or 8 feet tall. In a rural village in Japan, there was a family with a young boy who lived happily. One summer, the boy visited his grandparents' house. One day, while playing in the yard, he saw a tall, strange woman standing by the fence. She was impossibly tall, nearly 8 feet, and wore a long white dress. Her face was hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. The boy's grandparents looked terrified when he described the woman. They told him that she was Hachishaku-sama, a ghostly figure who preys on children. Once she sets her eyes on a child, she follows them relentlessly, making a deep, eerie sound like po, po, po. The grandparents took the boy inside and performed various protective rituals. They locked all the doors and windows, placed bowls of salt in each corner of the room, and told the boy not to leave his room until morning. That night, he heard the haunting po, po, po sound coming closer and closer, but he stayed hidden. In the morning, the grandparents hurriedly took him to a distant relative's house, hoping to break Hachishaku-sama's curse by getting him far away from the village. For many years, the boy was not allowed to visit his grandparents' village, and his family never spoke of the incident again. The legend of Hachishaku-sama remains a chilling reminder of a ghostly figure that can appear anywhere, always seeking out children to take away forever.
Do not listen to this scary story at nighttime or right before you're going to bed. Because I love you so much, I'm giving you this warning because what the fuck? So typically I listen to a lot of Spanish scary stories because I like translating them for you guys. I typically listen to these when my husband's asleep next to me and I'm just like scrolling story through story, right? I will say when I listened to this story, I got full body chills, right? But I was like, okay, cool, I'm saving this. This is gonna be a good ass story, and I just kept going. A lot of the times you guys ask me in my comments like, how do you sleep after reading all these stories? And I'm gonna be honest, I sleep perfectly well. Like typically I'm not scared, and I wasn't scared last night, which is why it's so weird that I had a dream about this fucking story. I guess this story really impacted me more than I thought. So I'm gonna translate the story for you guys, and then I'm gonna tell you the dream that I had at the very end. So there was this girl, she was around 15 or 16 years old, and she lived with her mom. Unfortunately, her mom lost her job and they had no money, so they ended up losing their house as well. So one of the mom's family members tells them that they have a house that they can live in because they didn't want them to be homeless, but unfortunately this house was like away from civilization. This house was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by like hills and mountains, but since the mom and daughter had nowhere else to go, they accepted the offer and decided to go live in this house. They end up going to the house, and when they get there, they notice the strangest thing ever. Right in front of the door is this big ass tree. Like the tree was so big that when they would try to open the front door, it would be hitting that tree. So the mom thought it was really strange that the tree would be like right in front of the front door. So the people who actually gave them a ride to that house noticed the tree as well, and they told the mom that if she wanted to, they can also help her remove that tree so that it doesn't stop the front door from opening. And she agreed, so they decided to do it then and there. When they removed that tree, on the roots of like where the tree was growing, they see like a skeleton of a baby. The mom says that it looked like maybe someone had buried the baby a very long time ago because the bones of the baby skeleton were just being eaten by the roots of that tree. She said that they didn't end up telling anybody about it. She just, had the tree removed, they saw that, and they just like moved on with their lives. Time passes, and in this house, it's a 2-bedroom home. It's a little small, but it does have a hallway that leads to both of the rooms. Both the mom and the daughter start hearing noises in the hallway, and they realize that it sounds like a little baby. She even said it doesn't sound like an animal, it didn't sound like a kid. There was no like steps walking. It sounded like a baby playing in the hallway. So the mom almost felt guilty because she felt like something had happened there. I mean, they found the baby bones, and she just felt really bad that maybe the baby ghost was there. So she started leaving out baby toys in the hallway. I already have chills. So after leaving the toys in the hallway, the mom says that they would then start hearing this baby playing with those specific toys that were left out for it. She mentions that nothing scary would happen, but she did feel that over time, the baby's energy was growing and growing. So one day, the mom and daughter get into a really big fight. And I mean, they were screaming at each other, like they were going at it, and the daughter ends up going to her room and like slamming the door, and mom also goes to her room and slams the door. So when the mom goes into her room, slams the door, and sits alone, she realizes that maybe she was a little tough on her daughter. Mom felt so bad and so guilty that she's like, I'm gonna go to her room and I'm gonna, apologize, and let's try to talk through it. So the mom goes and she knocks on her daughter's door, and of course the daughter didn't answer because she was pissed. After the daughter not answering her door, the mom still decided to open the door, and she starts off with, look, I really need to talk to you. And then she stays silent. The daughter was laying on her bed and she was like, what? That's when the mom was like, get up and come with me. And the daughter's like, what? And the mom's like, get up and come with me. The daughter's like, I thought you wanted to talk to me. And she goes, shut up, get up and come with me. So once the daughter realizes that something is going on because the mom was really seriously telling her to get up, she gets up. Her mom grabs her by the hand, they leave her bedroom, close her bedroom door, and the mom takes her back to her own room. So the mom explains that when she opened her daughter's door and told her, I need to talk to you, she looks at her daughter that's laying on the bed, and she sees a baby on top of her daughter's chest. She says that the baby was not a normal baby. When the mom was telling her daughter, get up and come with me, that baby would hold on to her daughter even tighter, looking at the mom and smiling at her. Oh my god, look at my heart. I think the reason why I imagine these stories in my head, so I'm seeing this shit like a movie in my brain. Can you imagine? She walked in there feeling so guilty that she got into a fight with her mom, tries to talk to her, and fucking sees a baby on her daughter's chest as she's telling her, get up and let's go. Baby hugs her daughter tighter while looking at her smiling. They left that house that night and never looked back, didn't go back to investigate, didn't want to know what the fuck happened there, because at that point, it wasn't just a little innocent baby ghost, because she saw a baby, but it was not a normal looking baby. Now for my dream. So in my dream, I'm laying in bed. Leave it to me to take naps in my dream too. And next to me is one of my exes, because my dream wasn't scary enough. And in my dream, I'm waking up because I'm feeling something crawling up my body. And when this thing finally gets to the very top, I see a scary looking baby with fucking crazy teeth. And you know how like in your dreams you can't fight, it's like slow motion? Well, as soon as I saw that face, my hand was like trying to push it away. I mean, the baby was like biting my hand, and I was like, what do I do? Because I'm moving so slowly. I was pushing that baby towards my ex, who was still asleep, because what the fuck, take him, not me. But this baby wouldn't give up. It kept trying to come at me, and to the point where I'm slowly moving my fucking head away. It doesn't sound as scary, but like it was fucked up in my dream. Okay, so The baby's still crawling, and once it's like face to face to me, I guess I got so spooked that I woke myself up. All it had to do was go to my ex, like, why the fuck would you want me? But no, I got really scared. I woke up and I was like, what the fuck was I dreaming about right now? Anyway, I hope you don't have dreams about this story.
This 28-year-old woman is on her way to meet a guy who she will recognize instantly, though she doesn't really know him. They used to be total strangers.
You have my brother's face.
In March of 2012, an incredible surgery was performed on 37-year-old Richard Norris. Norris had spent the last 15 years essentially living in hiding as a recluse due to the fact that his face shocked and disturbed the public. Norris had been involved in a pew-pew accident in 1997 that took away his upper and lower jaw, lips, and nose. All hope seemed to be lost for him until the family of 21-year-old Joshua Aversano was found. Joshua had been unalived in a tragic car accident, and his family had been approached by doctors working with Richard Norris to ask if they would be willing to donate their son's face to Norris, being that both of the men's faces originally somewhat resembled each other, and the family agreed. So in 2015, the sister of Joshua came face to face finally with the man who now wears her brother's face. And she did. She reached up and kind of brushed his forehead and could only say, "Wow." Seconds later, she added, "This is the face that I grew up with."
His nose, his lips, his teeth, his jawbone, his hair, everything belonged to my brother.
How would you feel if you met someone who now had one of your relatives' faces? And what would you even say to them?
A girl was sitting on a subway late at night when she noticed the woman sitting across from her was staring at her intently. The woman was sitting between two old men. The girl kept looking away, but the woman wouldn't break eye contact with her. The stare was beginning to freak the girl out. At the next stop, a new passenger got on, and it was a tall man wearing a trench coat. He then sat down next to the girl, and the woman paid no attention to the man in the trench coat. And she just kept looking at the girl, who was getting more and more creeped out as time went on. The two men didn't even glance in her direction. She pretended not to notice, but every time she glanced at the strange woman, the stare continued. When the train was pulling into the next stop, the man in the trench coat got up to leave, but suddenly he grabbed the girl's arm tightly, and as the doors opened, he dragged her off the train. The doors shut and the subway pulled off, leaving the girl alone with the man in the trench coat. She started screaming out loud, begging for help, but the man in the trench coat then said, "Calm down, I just saved your life. I didn't mean to scare you, but I had to get you off that train." The woman sitting opposite of you was dead, and the two men beside her were holding up her body.
I'm sure you've heard the news. Paintings that move? I thought it was a joke until I saw it with my own eyes. I bought a serene landscape at a flea market. Harmless, right? Every morning something was different. A tree missing. A figure closer. Today the figure is staring at me. From inside my house. This painting isn't just art. It's alive. And it's watching. I tried to ignore it. But every glance, every look, it's like it's waiting. For what? I don't know. Art lovers, beware. Some masterpieces are more than just paint and canvas. They're watching us. So, next time you buy a painting, look closer. You never know what's really inside.
If you're a fan of spine-tingling horror, you need to hear this. It's not just a story, it's real. It started with a simple notification, face detected. My security camera pinged, but when I checked, the screen showed only me. Weird, right? I brushed it off, maybe a glitch. But then it happened again, and again. Every single night. I watched the footage over and over, but nothing. Just an empty room. Until one night, I noticed something. A shadow. A flicker of movement behind me. My heart pounded. I wasn't alone. I called my friend over. We watched together. Suddenly, there it was. A face, barely visible, lurking in the darkness. And then, it was gone. We searched the house, but found nothing. No signs of entry, no one hiding. Just that feeling. That cold, creeping dread. Someone or something was watching. So if you ever get that notification, maybe check twice, because the unseen stalker, they might just be real. Stay safe.
This is a story that shows you how real death can be. In Islam, When a baby is born, God gives the baby a name, a written life story, and a date of death. And on the day of death, nothing and no one will stop the angel of death. This is a story of a Lebanese family, a mother and her teenage son. The son and his friends plan a trip after their high school graduation to celebrate. They were planning to fly to another country. He told his mom about this plan, but she was very scared for him. He was her only son. She felt like he was still too young to travel on his own with his friends. She begged him for weeks. She begged him not to go, but he insisted. The night before his morning trip, the son packs his bags and is ready to meet his friends at the airport the next morning. The alarm doesn't usually wake this boy up. He always relies on his mom to wake him up. So he asked her to wake him up at a certain time before the flight. The mother's heart had a wrong feeling about this. She decided not to wake him up. She wanted him to be late and miss this flight. His friends gave up waiting for him, and they eventually took that flight. The plane crashes only minutes after takeoff from a technical failure. She immediately sees the news that the plane her son was meant to take crashes, and there are no survivors. She finally runs to his room to wake him up and show him the news. But her son was already dead. He had a stroke in bed the same morning. Whether he took that flight or not, he was meant to die on this day. One piece of advice: when your mother has a wrong feeling about something, listen to her.
Haunting true story of Xiaoyun, restless spirit. In a small Chinese village, a girl named Xiaoyun drowned mysteriously in the river. Her death shocked the village, but the real horror began afterward. Soon after her funeral, villagers reported hearing eerie cries and seeing Xiaoyun's ghost near the river at night. She appeared soaked, her hair dripping with water, eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. One night, a villager named Ming was walking home late when he heard soft crying. As he approached the river, he saw Xiaoyun's ghost standing on the water's edge, her pale face staring straight at him. Terrified, Ming froze as the ghostly figure pointed at him and whispered, "Help me." Ming ran back to the village, trembling with fear. The next day, the villagers found wet footprints leading from the river to Ming's house. They decided to hold a ritual to appease Xiaoyun's spirit, offering prayers and food by the river. Even after the ritual, Xiaoyun's ghost was occasionally seen, her mournful presence a chilling reminder of the tragedy. Villagers still avoid the river at night, fearing her restless spirit might return, forever haunting the place where she met her untimely end.
Get ready with me while I tell you something very scary I went through. Correction, that I went through. Okay, so this story took place in 2016. My parents, they clean offices, and me and my brother, we used to go help them at the time. So it's basically like they go at night when nobody's in the buildings to clean the offices. So I don't want to say exactly where this was, but this building was pretty big. It was a 2-story building, and we would usually separate. So it would be my mom and dad, and then me and my brother. So there was this one specific time where there were some construction workers, and they had to go at night too, so nobody's at the building. So me and my brother, we were in an office, and sometimes the bucket where we throw the trash in gets really full. So I would tell my brother, "Can you go throw the trash?" So I could start taking more trash out because it didn't fit anymore. So I noticed my brother was taking a little longer than he should have, and I was like, okay, let me just leave. So I was like, oh, let me just leave. I'm already done with this office, so let me see where he's at. So this is where it gets really freaking creepy. By the time I get to the hallway, my mom and dad and my brother are there, and my brother is telling them that he ran into a construction worker. My brother starts telling my dad how the construction worker stopped him and asked him if he's ever heard noises in the building or if he's ever seen anything. My brother then tells him, yeah, we do hear things sometimes, but we just like ignore it, or we just don't pay much attention to it. Although there were times we did hear things and we got scared. Well, the construction worker starts telling my brother that they're not coming at night anymore. They're getting their stuff and leaving because they saw a little boy. So they saw a little boy dressed in hospital clothes like a hospital gown, running through the hallway, and a doctor or nurse type looking chasing after them. Yeah, and mind you, this building is not a hospital, not a clinic, it is a call center. So it was a call center upstairs, and downstairs it was a DR Horton. The DR Horton office was where the construction workers were in. So my dad started saying like there's no way, they just made that up. Start saying they're just trying to scare you, like blah blah blah. So we just like go about the date. We didn't really think much of it. It did scare us, but we were like, what the fuck? So fast forward a couple months later, so we're back in the building and my dad comes up to us and he looks freaking scared. And we're like, what happened? And he said that he saw so my dad starts telling us that he was in the hallway and that he saw a doctor pushing a patient on like a hospital bed, and they were exiting the building, and that my dad yelled, "Hey!" and that they turned and looked at him directly. The patient looked directly into my dad, and my dad was like looking at him, and that quickly they exited the building. And my dad said he ran out of the building, and when he went out there was nothing, like no cars, it was empty. It's just our car there in the building parking lot. So after that, we decided that we did not want to separate, and my dad was like, F that, we're not separating. We literally saw what the construction workers said that they saw, except it wasn't a kid, it was like an older guy. So, well, shortly after that happened, we didn't work there long after that, but now, so a couple months from today, we went to go visit that building, but it's completely abandoned. Like, it's just, there's nothing in it. So I'm just like, what? But yeah, let me know if you guys believe in ghosts, and let me know if you guys want more scary stories, because I have a lot.
The Gullah people of the southern coast of South Carolina have a terrifying urban legend. They believe that a person has a spirit and a soul. When they die, if the spirit is good, it goes to heaven. But if it's bad, it lingers on earth in the form of a boo hag. The hag goes around at night looking for candidates to steal energy from. It's said that they have no skin, which makes them red. When it finds a suitable victim, it's able to slip into any crack in the home undetected. They'll find a sleeping victim and straddle on top of them. They'll begin sucking the air out of the victim's lungs, rendering them helpless. And this induces a dream-filled sleep that makes the person not wake up. The hag does tend to leave the victims alive, and they do this so they can go back the next night to steal more energy from them. But if the victim is still somehow able to struggle, the hag will rip off their skin, leaving them to suffer. After taking the victim's energy, it'll fly off. When the victim wakes up, they tend to be short of breath and tired. However, there is a way to prevent the boo hag from stealing your energy. It's said that if you put a broomstick by your bed, the hag will be distracted by counting the straws on the broom and won't be able to straddle the person before the sun rises.
Probably never heard of this, so let me hear it. It's a Mexican urban legend about duendes. It's this story, it took place in Michoacan. There was this musician, right? He was with his band or whatever. They were playing, right? He ended up going home, but he had to go through a little shortcut. So he would go into the wood. He saw these duendes dancing. And they looked at him and they saw him and they were like, yo, you, come. Play for us and we'll give you a bunch of gold. Because they saw that he had an instrument on him. He's like, I bet, whatever. He started playing. When they finished, they gave him the gold. He was going back to his house. He knocked on the door and his wife literally looked at him like, what the f***? Like in shock. You look different? She was like, yo, I thought you were dead. You've been gone for so long. Where have you been? Where have you been all these years? She had kids with his best friend. Like, they were big and stuff. It's like, I was only gone for an hour. Like, I was with these duendes and I was playing for them. What are you talking about? They gave me all this gold. And then they're like, what gold? Those are a bunch of pesos. They're not even real gold coins. He's like, fuck, bro. So like, time for duendes are like different than human time. So late.
If you don't like creepy dolls but still keep them around, then this story might change your mind. I threw away my childhood doll, sick of its vacant stare. Trash bin, gone, or so I thought. This morning it was back, on my bed, with new eyes that looked just like mine. I felt a chill, my heart raced. Could someone be playing a trick on me, or was it something else? I checked the trash, empty. No one could have taken it back out. I picked it up. Its eyes followed me. I swear they blinked. I dropped it, ran out of the room. But the feeling stayed, that eerie sense of being watched. I'm not sure what to do now, but one thing's clear. This doll, it's not just a toy, it's something more. So next time you think of throwing away an old doll, remember my story, and ask yourself, could it come back? Thanks for watching. If you like this, hit the like button, and subscribe for more creepy tales.
According to legend, this is an actual leprechaun that was captured in 2013. It was discovered at Carrigaffricka Castle in County Cork, Ireland. The translation is Castle on the Rock of the Fairy. The word Pika translates as ghost or fairy. The remains were taken to a specialist to be reassembled. It was kept a secret until photos were leaked. Do you think it's real?
We're the reason you should not come to Alaska. Hello, my name is Urban. I am one of the Ursenrot people. We live deep in the mountains of Yupik territory, in deep underground caves and lairs. We spend our days fishing and hunting, unless we are interrupted. Although we are little, we can still do terrible things to you. When any hunters come through and disturb these lands, we get very territorial. We will lure you off the pathway with strange sounds, until they are completely lost. Then we will appear and offer you help, and if you accept, it will be the biggest mistake you ever make. We will take you deeper into the bush, and tie you up in a tree. Then we will throw rocks at you, poke you, laugh at you, and leave you to the wild wolves and bears to return you to Mother Nature. So if you're ever in Yupik territory, be respectful, and do not disturb our lands, and always remember.
So most of y'all probably ain't knowing this, but Oprah Winfrey been around for a long time. This lady's been around since the 20s. She was in business before the Great Depression hit. She'd married a white man. He loved her so much he brought her up from down south and brought her up north where they could be together. He snuck up there in the back of a truck where couldn't nobody see her. He had blankets and all that kind of stuff over top on her. And they got up there to New York City. No, they got Chicago. He had a hotel and went bought some property and bought a piece in a hotel. And in that hotel, he just came up little by little, learned the business, and then he went out and bought another one. And we bought that second one. He put Oprah in charge of it. And Oprah been running that thing all them years. But for some reason, she don't age. Now, you can go into your own reasons for that, but you will find that a lot of those who what you call elites, a lot of them been here for years.
You've certainly seen my videos, where I dance alone in empty streets. Hello, I am the Serbian dance lady. It all began in 2019 with a video recorded near a hospital. Some students asked me to dance under a spotlight on an empty street. They started recording and laughing, but when the fun ended, I chased them with a knife. The police searched the area, but I disappeared in the following years. More reports came in of people being chased by an old woman in white, dancing on deserted streets in Serbia. One day, some young people found me again, dancing on a street. I just wanted to dance, but they decided to mercilessly run into me, bringing an end to my life. They thought they no longer needed to worry about me, but since that incident, more people worldwide have seen and captured me on camera. Don't misunderstand, I'm not here to scare you. If you happen to see me dancing on a night out, I'll invite you to dance with me. If you agree, I'll spare you. But if you refuse, I'll chase with my knife.
10 terrifying urban legends that turned out to be true. First, Cropsey, a boogeyman from Staten Island whose story led to a real killer. Next, the Bunny Man, a tale of a man in a bunny costume attacking people in Virginia, based on real events. Raymond Robinson, also known as Charlie No-Face, a disfigured man who became a legend in Pennsylvania. The Candy Lady in Texas, a twisted tale grounded in a series of real crimes. The Legend of the Green Man, an eerie true story of a man in Pennsylvania who glowed. The Hook Man, a famous legend reflecting real attacks in the 1940s. The Poisoned Halloween Candy, a myth that started from real cases of tampering. The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, a tale that was born from actual true crimes. The Vanishing Hitchhiker, several real reports of encounters with ghostly travelers. Finally, La Llorona, a famous Mexican legend with roots in real historical events. Discover these amazing
let's talk about the Mexican legend of La Lechuza. BTW, I'm so sorry if I just scared you guys. Literally scared myself. La Lechuza has said to be a real witch that was living in Mexico centuries ago. La Lechuza was caught doing witchcraft, so they punished her for her crimes. During her execution, an owl flew over, and La Lechuza declared that she will take over the spirit of this owl just so she can come back. And she did come back. In the daytime, La Lechuza was an owl. In the nighttime, she will transform back into a human being where she would seek her revenge on the villagers that executed her. Until this day, La Lechuza haunts Mexico. There's been a lot of people who've been saying that they've seen her, people who've claimed that they've captured pictures of her, people who've said they've been attacked by her. One thing for sure, if you ever encounter her, I would advise you to run. What do you guys think? Should I do this on my live stream? Let me know.
But the laughter still echoes through the empty halls. Her room has been locked since the funeral, sealed away like the memories we couldn't bear to face. But today, I found the door wide open. Dust danced in the sunlight pouring through the window, and there, in the corner, her favorite doll, sitting just as she left it. I stepped inside, heart pounding, and the air grew colder with each breath. The laughter came again, closer this time. I turned around, but the room was empty. Only shadows and silence. I whispered her name, hoping for a sign, praying it was just my mind playing tricks. But then, a gentle tug on my sleeve, an icy touch. I fled, slamming the door behind me. And the laughter. It followed me into the hallway. Is she really gone? Or has she been here all along? Watching, waiting, and laughing in the dark? The forgotten child. A chilling encounter you'll never forget.
This is why you should be careful not to be unfaithful to your partner. If you are from Central America, you probably heard about the haunting stories about La Ciguanaba. She is said to be a beautiful woman, frequently spotted either in her naked form or draped in delicate white or black attire. Most often, wanderers stumble upon her as she bathes in public water tanks, rivers, or other bodies of water. On other occasions, she may be seen gently washing clothes. Her strategy is a simple but effective one. She thrives in the obscurity of dark moonless nights, ensuring her victims never catch a full glimpse of her face at their initial encounter. Men, especially those who are unfaithful, are her primary targets. Captivated by her appearance, men often approach her, showering her with compliments, hoping to catch a glimpse of her concealed beauty. As the legend goes, those persistent enough will soon find themselves face to face with a creature far from what they imagined. Instead of the face of a beautiful maiden, they are met with the grotesque head of a horse, with red eyes that is staring directly at them. She will utter a phrase like, "Do I still look beautiful to you?" Those who encountered La Ciguanaba either met a tragic fate or were driven to the brink of madness.
I am the reason men should avoid going near water in Japan. Hello, my name is Nirayana, which when translated to English means wet woman. I am a vampiric serpent, which means I possess a snake-like body and depend on human fluids to survive. I lurk in bodies of water in the Kyushu region of Japan, where I wash my hair, which never dries, keeping only my head and arms above the water, waiting to be disturbed. And when I am approached, I pretend to drown or hold a rock to appear like I'm cradling a baby and beg for assistance. My presence is hypnotic, and anyone who is nearby will be drawn towards me. But once they approach, they will realize there is no baby, and I use the big rock to nuzzily put them to sleep, then wrap my tail around them and drag them deep underwater so I can get my feeding for the day. So if you are ever in Japan, make sure to always remember.
Have you ever heard of the Japanese urban legend of the Tiki Tiki? Tiki Tiki is a Japanese urban legend that is both famous and terrifying. According to the legend, Tiki Tiki is the ghost of a young woman who was cut in half by a train while walking on the railroad tracks. She is said to have lost her lower body in the accident, and now haunts the area where she died, seeking revenge on those who cross her path. The name Tiki Tiki comes from the sound she makes as she drags herself along the ground with her arms. She is said to wear a long white dress and to carry a scythe or a sharp object which she uses to attack her victims. Encounters with Tiki Tiki are said to be terrifying and often fatal. Some versions of the legend suggest that if you hear the sound of her dragging herself along the ground, you must run and never look back, or she will catch you and cut you in half with her scythe. Other versions of the legend suggest that Tiki Tiki will offer you her lower half to replace your own legs, but if you accept the offer, she will drag you to your death. The legend of the Tiki Tiki is often told as a cautionary tale to discourage children from playing on or near railway tracks, but it is also a popular subject of horror stories and movies in Japan.
This is the story of Okiku, the doll who grows human hair. In 1918, a young man bought a doll just like this for his 2-year-old sister. The girl, named Okiku, loved the doll and brought her everywhere. Unfortunately, Okiku fell ill when she was 3 and passed away from a fever. Because the girl couldn't be buried with the doll, her family kept the doll in their household shrine to honor their late daughter, and they also named the doll Okiku. Soon, they noticed that the doll's hair was growing, and they suspected that the little girl's spirit had possessed the doll. In 1938, they brought the doll to Manenji Temple, located in Hokkaido, where the doll is still kept today. Okiku's hair is trimmed periodically. Apparently, the hair was tested at a lab and found to be human hair. You can still see the doll today, but photography is not allowed. None of the dolls in this video are the actual doll. This is her. So, what do you think? Could a doll really be possessed by a human spirit and grow real hair?
Japanese urban legend, Gozu, the cow hit. This urban legend is about a scary story that is considered the scariest horror story ever written. It is so terrifying that you will die of fright after hearing it. According to legend, the short story is called Cow Hit. It was discovered in Japan in the 17th century. The actual origin of the story is still shrouded in mystery. Rumors say that upon hearing this creepy tale, listeners were overcome with a terror so great that they trembled violently for days, until they finally died from fright. The cow hit story was deemed too dangerous and copies of it were burnt. The copies that survived were cut into sections and distributed across the country. Today, it is believed that only fragments of the original story remain. Actual details of the story remain unknown to this day. The unfortunate people who read the story never lived long enough to repeat it. One rumor tells an elementary school teacher who came into possession of some fragments of the original cow hit story. The teacher was taking his class on a school trip. After some time, the teacher announced he would tell them the tale of the cow hit. Before he could finish the first sentence of the story, the children began to panic, shouting and crying, "Stop! Don't tell us!" One child turned pale and covered his ears, and others began to scream. But the teacher refused to stop. They say his eye turned white and proceeded telling the story like he was possessed. When the teacher regained his senses, the bus had crashed into a ditch. The students fainted and were foaming at the mouth, and the bus driver lay slumped on the wheel, sweating and shivering. The teacher swore never to tell the cow hit story ever again. Japanese urban legend, Kokuri-san. Kokuri-san is a famous scary game in Japan. It is similar to the Ouija board and is mostly played by Japanese school children. The aim of this game is to summon and question a spirit about the future. Because of the popularity, many schools ban students from playing this game. The Kokuri-san seems to be the less intense version of the Ouija board. An Ouija board can be dangerous because it can summon demons or open people up to the possibility of being possessed. Meanwhile, the Kokuri-san is less dangerous because it summons the spirit of a trickster spirit from the Shinto religion. Kokuri-san is the name of the spirit you summon during the game. It is an animal spirit that is a mixture between a fox, a dog, and a raccoon. So here's how you play the game. First, you have to... Psych! Why would you wanna? Search it up for yourself if you wanna know more about the future, okay? Although not as dangerous as the Ouija board, people can be upset by the answer they receive. And also, the spirit is a trickster and can easily lie to you. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
I still think that my favorite urban legend, Josh folklore fact, is that there are certain areas in New Orleans where you cannot get a taxi late at night, not because it isn't safe, but because taxi companies have had recurring problems of picking up ghosts in those areas who are not aware that they are dead and disappearing from the cab before reaching the destination, and therefore stiffing the driver on the fare, causing a loss for the company. An occupational hazard of cab driving I had not previously considered. I love that the NOLA problem here is not ghosts in my taxi cab, but ghosts are funking broke dead bastards and I got bills. Horror is when ghosts get into cabs and scare drivers. Magical realism is when cab companies have to develop policies to prevent ghastly fare theft. In a book about the tsunami in Japan in 2011, the writer talked about how there was a huge increase in reports of ghostly activity. Apparently in Japan, treating ghosts rudely is basically considered the stupidest thing you could possibly do. For months after the tsunami, taxi drivers would pick up a passenger only to have them give an address in one of the devastated areas. The cab driver often looked up halfway to the destination to find their fare had disappeared. Not wanting to be impolite to the person, even if they were dead, they'd drive to the address, open the door to let them out, then drive away. Japan. He's still a person? New Orleans? He's a damn lowlife is what he is.
I suffered misfortune for falling in love with a white woman. Hello, I am Daniel Robertal, though more famously known as the Candy Man. My story begins in 19th century Louisiana, in New Orleans. Apart from creating astounding artworks, I worked at a plantation in New Orleans. The plantation owner recognized my talent as a painter and asked me to paint a portrait of his daughter. I immediately fell in love with her, and our feelings were mutual. However, one day, the girl's father discovered our affection and became furious. He gathered a group armed with pitchforks and accompanied by dogs, driving me out of town. Shortly after, I was captured near an old bar. The owner there severed my hand, and later, the group covered me in honey and threw me into a beehive. The injuries and excruciating pain from this ordeal ended my life. I cursed those who killed me and vowed to return, haunting anyone who calls the Candyman 5 times.
New Orleans has its fair share of eerie tales, but few are as unsettling as the legend of Les Filles à la Cassette, or the Casket Girls. Back in the 1700s, young women from France were sent to New Orleans to marry settlers. They arrived carrying strange small chests, said to hold their belongings, but many believe something darker was inside. Rumors quickly started to spread. People began to vanish, and there were whispers that the Casket Girls weren't ordinary women. Some say they brought something supernatural with them, something that still haunts the French Quarter today. Vampires. Their old convent, the Ursuline Convent, is rumored to have sealed windows to keep whatever was inside locked away.
Don't look inside, or you'll never leave.
Visitors say even now, if you're near the convent at night, you can feel something watching you. The question is, are you brave enough to find out? Be sure to follow for more 30 Nights of Urban Legends.
Have you guys heard of the Night Lady? This all started in Chihuahua, Mexico, 2009. Residents started noticing something really disturbing. You see, now some of the children in the area were going missing. I gotta grab some food for this one. Look at this beautiful roll. Now with all the children around the area going missing, people started reporting seeing a woman. They said she would climb on the rooftops during the day, only to wait till night to sneak in through the window to snatch children. Police then sketched an image of what they believed to be the Night Lady. Only one child has been reported of actually escaping the Night Lady. You see, his parents had ran into the room and caught her just in time. She quickly then escaped and crawled out of the window. Wait, before I continue, let's say the Night Lady had taken you. Your third act has to come and save you. Who is it? Let me know who it is. Anyways, the kid that got away recounted waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the Night Lady standing over top of him, just watching him. People have brushed this off as just one big hoax until after midnight, a teenage girl had captured this photo. This is supposedly the Night Lady.
This was the most evil lady that ever lived. During the early 1900s in East New Jersey, a fortune teller lady named Luna Tick had a shop at the outlet mall. Most people avoided her shop because of how strange she was. But when they did enter, she would read their palms and give them a date when their life would end. The creepy part about this was that she was always correct and started to gain local fame. But when a skeptical off-duty officer named Pepe Roney went in for a reading, he was told that today would be his last. He quickly insulted Luna, saying that she was a fraud and that he would be right back here tomorrow to prove it. Pepe decided to stay the night in at his home just in case, because he knew her track record of being correct. After dozing off around 10 p.m., he would wake up randomly and would become face to face with Luna, and she would creepily say, "Sorry, did I wake you?" A scuffle between them would happen, and Pepe was able to escape her grasp, but she continued chasing him down the hallway, yelling, "I am just fulfilling your destiny." She was able to catch up to him, and she tackled him down the stairs. When he awoke, Luna was still unconscious on the ground, so he decided to handcuff her to a railing and went out to get help. But when they returned, she was gone. After everyone left, Pepe decided to go lay down and relax. But out of nowhere, he heard a whisper say, "Let's try this again."
This is gonna blow your mind. Meet the Bunny Man, Fairfax County's most terrifying urban legend. Picture this, a dark, lonely bridge in Fairfax County, Virginia. The locals call it the Bunny Man Bridge. Why? Because of the eerie sightings of a man in a rabbit suit wielding an axe. The legend claims he lurks in the shadows, attacking anyone who dares to come too close. Back in the 1970s, there were real reports of a man dressed as a bunny terrorizing the area. He'd leave behind mutilated animal carcasses, adding to the spine-chilling mystery. Was he real? Or just a figment of our darkest fears? Some say the Bunny Man is still out there, waiting for his next victim. So if you ever find yourself near that infamous bridge, you might want to think twice before crossing. Sleep tight, horror fans. Thanks to all the TikTok creators. Follow them on TikTok. Please like, share, and follow for more.